Welcome to TrueCircles.net. We have with us today Ms. Rachna Dhingra. She is an activist from Bhopal Group of Information and Action, which is spearheading the movement to deliver justice to victims of Bhopal gas tragedy. So, Ms. Rachna Dhingra, since when did you get into the activism in Bhopal?
I got involved about 13-14 years ago. This was about the time when Dow Chemical was thinking of merging, taking over Union Carbide Corporation. And people from Bhopal had come to US protesting the merger, saying that Union Carbide, if Dow Chemical takes over, they just cannot take over its assets, but it will also have to assume its liabilities. So that's how a lot of people got involved in Bhopal campaign, and a lot of people who thought everything was over in Bhopal and that things were all right. It was only around that time that we found out how things were worse for people of Bhopal than they were since on the day of the disaster.
So you were living in US that time. So was you thought of returning back to India, work with the victims here in Bhopal? What moved you?
I think the story itself of Bhopal is inspiring in many ways of how the most poor people are fighting against the most powerful corporations for justice and life of dignity. And secondly, what happened in Bhopal is not just the story of Bhopal. There are many Bhopals happening all over this world, all over this country, where corporations put profit maximization before people's health and lives. And this story is getting repeated over and over again in many places. It is very important that there is justice in Bhopal, so that we can make things right. We can there is a precedent that corporations cannot just come and kill and pollute and leave without any kind of liability. So for me, it is very important that there is justice in Bhopal, so that we can set the right precedent, that these corporations cannot be beyond law of this country, and they cannot put people's health and lives before their profit.
Okay, so it's been 3 decades since the disaster happened, and you're here working since a decade now. So in that period, do you think any kind of iota of justice has been delivered to the victims?
First, let me be very clear. Whatever people in Bhopal have got, whatever little healthcare or compensation or rehabilitation, is because of their fight, is because of their struggle. It is not because the governments wanted to do it, and it's not because corporations wanted to do the right thing here. So 30 years later, there are still people who do not have Bhopal has not gotten justice, and people do not have a life of dignity. There is not a single individual or corporation who has gone behind bars for this corporate massacre in Bhopal, which continues till today. There is thousands of tons of toxic waste that still lies in and around the factory, which has contaminated the soil and groundwater of 50,000 people, and more, maybe more. There are children being born with birth defects that government could care less of. And here we have both corporations who hire the most expensive lawyers the money can buy to defend themselves from the civil, criminal and environmental liability they face here. And they are extended a very warm environment in this country by the former governments. We have to see what the stand of Mr. Modi is on this issue. But we know that as far as the government and the corporations are concerned, people of Bhopal are considered dispensable in the name of corporate greed.
So what you are saying is, forget about justice, they are still suffering.
Yes, justice is still something that people are fighting for. People are still suffering for basic things. They're suffering from basic health care. We do not have basic health facilities in this city for Bhopal gas victims. We do not know how to treat them. There is no treatment protocol. The people have walked twice to Delhi just to get clean drinking water here. For 37 days they have walked. This is, and there are children who are being born with birth defects, and no government gives them any rehabilitation, any place where they can be treated. So I mean, this is not just people who are directly exposed, but the generation that is coming now or the generation before that. They all have poisons of union carbide and Dow chemical in them, and government is too busy protecting both of these corporations.
So you have lived in the US before coming to India. What do you think if this kind of massacre of this magnitude had happened in US? What would have been the reaction comparing to the here in India?
I think reaction would have been somewhat different. I think maybe the corporation would have been bankrupted. But there also, in US, we also see a similar thing. We also see people who are, African Americans or poor whites or Hispanics, they are the ones who are bearing the brunt of, environmental contamination in other areas. Well, if BP is an example to go by what happens, then yes, obviously, for 11 lives and loss to the flora and fauna, they were compensated in billions of dollars within a year of the disaster. And here, 30 years later, we're still challenging the settlement in the Supreme Court, and most people have just got $500 as compensation. I think if the disaster had happened in a more affluent area, in India, the results would have been very different. Yeah, and even if it happened in a poor area in US, the results would be exactly the same.
So the victims got just peanuts in compensation.
Yes, victim got $500, and that also not as a lump sum payment. That was in pieces and pieces, and they had to fight. They had to fight their own government. Here we had set up a system where government settled with Union Carbide without consulting a single survivor. Yet the survivors had to fight their own government to qualify for compensation. This is what we had set up. The victims themselves, who were a lot of them illiterate from the unorganized sector, had to hire doctors, had to hire lawyers, had to, got involved with touts just to get something that what was rightfully theirs. They never asked to be gassed, and if someone gassed them and made them sick for the rest of their lives, they had to go through this humiliating process of proving themselves as gas victims just to get $500.
What about the medical rehabilitation? Many of them still suffering. So is government doing something serious for the medical?
Yes, there are 6 gas relief hospitals which were built with a lot of money. A lot of equipment came in and all of that. And there are many other small dispensaries and mini units that have been opened. And at the end of the day, none of these hospitals know how to treat Bhopal gas victims. There is no treatment protocol. And this is not what the activists are saying. We had filed a public interest litigation in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court formed a monitoring committee to look at the problems of medical care in gas relief hospitals. And that monitoring committee has come out with some 10-12 reports in the last 10 years, all saying the same thing. There are spurious drugs that are being supplied. Doctors don't come on time. There is no treatment protocol. There is the necessary departments that are needed are not there. Necessary specialists that are needed are not there. 80% of post specialists and super specialists are vacant. So all of these problems still exist, and and more than compensation, people need proper medical care, and that is what is not there.
Why do you think government is, as you said, this is the most important thing to get? So why do you think government is neglecting medical rehabilitation?
Just like they neglect any other issues, there is no political will. There is, gas relief department has become, is probably one of the most corrupt departments. Everyone who wants to make money comes to this department. We have corruption in economic rehabilitation, funds meant for economic rehabilitation of gas victims, crores of rupees spent, and not a single gas victim got employed. But on paper, some 7,000, 8,000 gas victims have gotten jobs. same with social support, same with hospitals. So it's a big money making machine for the bureaucrats to come and be part of. And when there is no political will, when you don't see this as a problem, obviously you are not going to fight it. And this whole approach, like till today, the Department of Gas Relief is still a temporary department. So the government thinks that this problem is just going to go away. It's just going to go away. I don't know how they think. So everything is on a firefighting approach. 30 years later, you do not have a permanent department. If you do not have a permanent department, then you obviously think this problem is not there to stay. Yeah, you think it's just that's eventually just waiting for everyone to die, and that will be the end of the problem. But 30 years later, we are still seeing problems of people who were directly exposed, getting serious and serious problems in second and third generation, issue of contamination which had nothing to do with the disaster itself. All of these still remain unaddressed, but the department thinks they have done all that they can.
So recently you have did a one large dharna at Jantar Mantar.
Yeah.
So you have been fighting since a decade. Others were there was doing since 1984. What do you think you can achieve some results by that? As you have said, the government is not serious enough to address this issue.
Well, the recent agitation where 5 gas-affected women were on a fast without water really moved the government, and there was a lot of a dialogue on how to move things forward. That was on a very small issue of compensation, but we had a long conversation with the minister, and he seemed to agree that what we are saying, that the
Mr. Anand
Kumar, who is in charge of the Bhopal cell, he seemed to think what we are saying is based on facts and hospital records, and he assured us that he will fulfill the demands of compensation and change the figures in the curative petition, so that an appropriate amount could be asked from Union Carbide and Dow Chemical. So I think this is a thing we have been raising for the last 4 years, and finally we have it has been rejected earlier by the earlier governments, what we are saying, but at least this time the minister did show a lot of willingness in fixing the things that he had the power to fix things. So we are hopeful. We have another meeting in 20 days with him. We are hopeful that this will be addressed, which will be a big, it will be actually, it's a 27-year-old battle we will win if this error is fixed.
So how this battle has affected you personally? Can you tell us some moments? There has been some moments in your life in this activism that you must have felt as the fight I'm doing is worth it.
Yeah, many. I have seen people who have literally nothing to eat and don't know where their food is going to come from the next day, but will come out and fight on the streets, And women have been in the forefront here of leading the fight for their children, for their families, which has been totally inspirational. I think just the courage that these women have in fighting the most powerful, the ministers as well as the corporations, is really thrilling and inspiring. And yes, there are many moments where you are together in grief and you're together in victory also. Like today we are celebrating what the minister has promised, and so gas victims will be facilitating the 5 women who were on fast. So they are together in victory, and we have been in jails together several times. We have been beaten up by the police several times. Now the government of India has also taken away our passports because we have all these criminal cases for protesting for clean water and for clean up and for compensation. So all those you face that comes with this. Yeah, but it's totally worth a fight if we can set the right precedent that corporate greed is not acceptable.
My last question: it's been 3 decades, justice is still deluded. Are you willing to take this fight more further?
Yeah, I think there is. I think people of Bhopal are very willing to take this fight further. I am. We have seen some good things happen because of the fight. So it's not just that we do one dharna after dharna and nothing gets accomplished. In the last 5 years itself, we have accomplished quite a bit.
How far you can take it?
However far we have to take it to get justice. I mean, that's all. It is different for everyone else. Some people have given up. There's no doubt of that. But a lot still continue to fight.
Okay. Thanks a lot for speaking to us.
Thank you.